The Knicks back in Madison Square Garden after a 10-day West Coast road trip hosting the Miami Heat. Karl-Anthony Towns, he took center stage, which brings us to today's electric moment, brought to you by Hyundai. Because Karl-Anthony Towns, right here, Tim Legler, bullies his way inside, but watch the ticker at the bottom of your screen here. He would just rack up the consecutive points here for the New York Knicks.
Yeah, and this was their offense. No Jalen Brunson. He's going to get a lot of touches, so he took over, particularly late first into the second quarter, carried that all the way through the rest of the half, and it's where New York got some separation.
Towns up to 9 consecutive points now. A minute later, same score. Campaign drives it, kicks it to Towns at the top of the key. He drains a three. He's having his own 12-0 run now, but he wouldn't stop there. The Knicks' next possession, Hart finds Towns by the logo, where he shoots the 31-foot three. Here's what he had to say about that deep three.
If I was one step through from the half court, I was shooting it, so I was letting it fly.
He said, that's where I want it, UD.
I mean, it's easy to shoot it when you're open. You gotta come together and switch up, and those guys in that locker room know that.
To the third quarter here. That sounds a little personal, UD. Hart finds Mikal Bridges, drives to the layup. Bridges game high 28 points. The Knicks starting to really roll here. Hart drains the three. Hart had 12 points, 13 rebounds, 11 assists, his 8th triple-double this season, tying Wilt Frazier for the most in a season in Knicks history, by the way. Karl-Anthony Towns putting the finishing touches on this. He had 23 in the game, and the Knicks get the win here. A lot was made about the Knicks starters' workload, and last night was one way to maybe bridge the gap. All 5 Knicks starters played 32 minutes or less against Miami. It's just the second time this season the Knicks starters all played that little in the same game. So according to ESPN Analytics, the Knicks have a 98.6% chance of being the 3 seed in the East. Legs, what do you believe that would be a successful season for the Knicks, who have the Cavaliers and the Boston Celtics in their same conference?
Realistically, you're looking at it this way. They're going to play the Celtics in the second round, assuming they both win their first-round series. Now, look, if the Knicks lose, let's just hypothetically say they play the 6th seed Pistons. They lose to the Pistons in the first round and Jalen Brunson's back, that's disastrous end to the year. Assume they win that series. You're going to play the Celtics in the second round. Now, what's realistic to expect? A long, tough, competitive series in which you lose is as far as this season is going. They're not going to beat the Boston Celtics. And I also think Jalen Brunson, by the way, he's going to come back from this ankle. That doesn't mean he won't be bothered by it to a certain extent, or maybe just a little bit less explosive, a little bit less quick, maybe a little bit less lift on his jump shot. Probably the rest of the postseason, that could slow him down a little bit, making that second-round loss even more likely. But look, if that's a sweep or a 5-game series, that also, to me, is a disastrous end to the year.
I'm not going to even talk about second round. We're going to talk about first round.
Okay.
And first things first, this is championship expectations. You move you bring Cat in, you move Julius Randle, you move DiVincenzo. You make those moves. You sell your soul a little bit, Tibbs, because you're a defensive guy, but you bring in more offense. You do that because you want to win a championship. Now, I like those Thundercats out of Detroit. I'm looking at that matchup, and they're sharpening their swords, and they are waiting for this matchup. They are excited about this matchup. Cade Cunningham, Malik Beasley, those guys are ready for this matchup. Jalen Brunson coming in or not, that ankle's not going to be ready till the summertime. We all know that, so he is not going to be healthy. I'm looking at Detroit, and I'm saying this could be a first-round exit for New York.
You say championship expectations. I'm going to say championship ambitions. Nobody has watched the Knicks and said this looks like a championship team this season. And look, if they get bounced in the first round, if it's a 5-game flop even in the second round, then it is a massive failure. What's a success? I don't know, but the ceiling is a competitive second-round series against the Boston team.
But all of that needs Jalen Brunson to be healthy. And our own Cassidy Hubbarth reported that he's going to be out for another week or so, and he's still in a boot right now, but doing some light shooting. You both touched on this. What can you expect from a player who has that type of usage coming back from an injury like this?
I don't like hearing that. Still in a boot? I mean, you understand once that comes off, first of all, he's going to have stiffness in that ankle the rest of the season. There's just nothing you can do about that. And Jalen Brunson is not a blur, right? He's a guy that uses strength, balance, and IQ, and great shooting touch. He needs every ounce of quickness he has. If you lose even a little bit and you're Jalen Brunson, that makes everything more of a slog offensively, where you're just constantly harassed and you're in traffic all the time. He could be facing that the rest of the way. Look, you go out and get Cat to offset some of that. But I think to UD's point, you're talking about a Detroit Pistons team, even in the first round, that's going to challenge you defensively. But assuming they were to win that, you're not getting past the Boston Celtics unless Jalen Brunson is absolutely 100%. And even then, I wouldn't pick them to win that series.
I mean, and you got to look at what New York has done, so far offensively. I mean, out of this world. The offensive numbers, Cat can get his buckets against anybody. If you're small, he's going to post you. If you're big, he's going to shoot the three. So offense is not going to be a problem. I think the Detroit series is going to come down to toughness. And we saw a little bit of that between Tibbs and Josh Hart. Yeah. So we know the toughness is sprinkled in there. But if at the end of the day, I'm going with Detroit basketball on this one.
This is what you're referring to, this
battle
is the
locker room
words,
I want to be in. Put me in this locker room.
Exchanging
Put me in this locker room.
of sentiments between Tibbs and Josh Hart, and we've seen this a couple of times with Josh Hart and Tibbs and a couple of his players here. But their defense has gotten better since Mitchell Robinson has entered the lineup. And some folks are saying, well, why were you playing Karl Anthony Towns so many minutes of a fourth quarter where they were up by so much? Well, it's because I would think Tibb wants to see that double big lineup. Those two had only played 9 minutes together total entering last night. They played 9 minutes together in the fourth quarter alone. So getting a larger sample size there, I would think, is what he's thinking. Warriors lost last night to the Nuggets team that was without Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, and Christian Brown. Denver had held Steph to 20 points on 4 of 14 shooting from 3 in his 36 minutes. After the game, he shared his thoughts on Curry's workload lately.
Steph's been carrying us for a month. He's been amazing. He's tired, so we got to get him some rest. I just you can see it. He doesn't have his energy right now.
It's game 68. I think we're all tired. It's the reality. The NBA. So we just got to all figure out a way.
It's okay to be tired, and that's on myself and that's on us as a unit to pick up the slack for him. He's, as everybody wants to think that he is superhuman, he is not. He is our leader, and we must protect him at all times. I will tell you that. So that's on myself for sure, but everybody else to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing and give my man a break.
We just want to not be in the play-in, so whatever we got to do, we got to figure it out.
Completely that he's tired. I said that in the Sacramento game the other night. He was basically played in a box and one in that game, and he kind of succumbed to it. He went to the weak side of the floor, allowed himself to be face guarded, and said go play 4-on-4, and ended up putting up big numbers on the Kings and beating him anyway. He looked exhausted last night. I agree with it. What's interesting is they said Jimmy Butler was going to alleviate that. It maybe not yet, because the burden Steph carried all year. Here's the thing. They talk about this play-in. Here's why it's so important. You're not just talking about the difference between 6 and 7, where now you're 7, you will go host that 7-8 game. They could be 8. The Clippers are 1 game behind them right now. So if you fall to the 8 spot, you got to go on the road for that game. Your season you have another chance then in the 9-10, but if you're in that spot, you're playing the Thunder in the first round. That is why it is so important to hold on to the 6, and that's why last night was a golden opportunity with Minnesota losing to the Pacers, and you playing the Nuggets that shorthanded and you don't get the win. That's a lost opportunity.
And Steph came into the game questionable, so you had to know that he wasn't 100%, that there was a calculation made, okay, we're going to go for the jugular in this game where the Nuggets are shorthanded, and it didn't come to fruition. The numbers say that Jimmy Butler has helped a little bit with Steph Curry, but this is a guy he's 37, in constant motion. So how do you balance this pursuit of the play-in, Udonis, but also Steph's health?
Whew. That's a tough one because you do not want to be in the play-in, but what I will say is last night was going to be a tough game for Jimmy regardless. When you talk about Aaron Gordon, when you talk about Russell Westbrook, you're talking about guys that have size, speed, athleticism. Those are the kind of guys that Jimmy struggled with. Smaller guards, he can overpower. Bigger guys, he can usually get around. Those guys that usually have that balance of both, those are teams Jimmy struggled with. Guys that are switchable matchup that can guard him in the post and can guard him on the perimeter. So hopefully that's not a matchup they're going to have, but OKC has wing defenders. They have Caruso. They have Dort. They have these lengthy, long wing defender guys. And then Houston has that as well. So neither one of those teams in the first round is going to play out well for Golden State. So in my opinion, move up as high as you can and get out of there. Move up as high as you can. You can't rest. You can't do both. You have to pick one. Well, you figure it out after that.
But they've got to give him a chance to finish the regular season strong. He might need a rest night tonight. I mean, you can see the mental fatigue in him. Some of those turnovers were incredibly sloppy. The one that I knew, okay, the Nuggets are actually going to win this game is when Steph threw a one-hand lefty underhand lob to I don't know who. It looked like somebody, you know, playing cornhole about 6 beers in.
Hey, I'm pretty good in that.
I was going to say, raise your hand if you have experience.
Like a cornhole team. Look at our uniforms.
Yeah, I'm better 6 beers in.
No, 2 to 5, you're good. Once you get to 6, 7, 8, you're
now that's the golf course, what you're describing.
Look, 5 or 6, they're good in the seeding. 7 or 8, they're in trouble because you need Steph fresh for the playoffs.
Yep.
And the time to rest for him is when other teams are playing in the play-in. You don't want him having to play those games with the Warriors season on the line and then turn right back around and deal with Lou Dort or Amin Thompson or whoever it may be.
Jonathan Kuminga is back. Maybe he can alleviate some of that stress offensively off Steph. So they're getting a little bit more healthy.
Yeah.
Maybe that can help.
And this is a weird time of year when you talk about strength of schedule. The Warriors are pretty middle of the pack, but last night's game was supposed to be really difficult. No one plays. It's a weird time of year to look at that as some sort of indicator. Minnesota's supposed to have the easiest remaining schedule in the West. They drop one to the... So it's all sort of a little bit, as Stephen A. would say, fluid at this time of year.